Real Virginia is produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Become a Farm Bureau member today.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Hello everyone and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce all the wonderful products we enjoy. This month, we'll visit Virginia's Garden by the Sea, as well as stop by the Salad Bowl of Southwest Virginia. Plus, Andy Hankins has some weed control tips for your garden on From the Ground Up. And Mark Viette will show us how to assure your wisteria blooms next year. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the historical Canal Walk area of Richmond, Virginia. We're just feet away from the Virginia Street Farmers Market right here in the heart of the city. And it is indeed farmers market season and growing season all across our wonderful state. And of course, that means battling weeds in your garden. And that's why Cooperative Extension Specialist Andy Hankins tells us how we can control weeds from the ground up.
Last week we put in a row of young tomato transplants here in this field, and we got 2 heavy rainstorms, and this whole area where we have a row of tomatoes has grown up in weeds. We've got grass coming up and morning glory, and some of these are red root pigweed and ragweed and lamb's quarter. So we've got to get all of this under control. We're going to start off just by using a simple garden hoe, which is so good you don't have to bend over. We can just do it from standing position. One thing I like to do when I'm hoeing is pull soil in towards the plant. It just seems to make it grow better. And any weeds that were not controlled by the hoe should be right close to the plant, should be pulled by with your fingers real quickly. If you just put a little bit of hay or straw around the base of a plant, that encourages grass to grow. To really get some good weed control, I like to use a thick layer of the straw. What we're trying to do is block the sunlight from the soil so those weeds can't possibly grow. This little micro tiller is extremely useful in an area where we don't have a lot of space. If you're trying to till weeds in a backyard walled-in garden or beside a sidewalk, even with flowers and vegetables, it's very useful. It is so light, it weighs about 40 pounds, that you can just pick it up and go anywhere with it. This is cultivation equipment for a serious gardener or even for a market gardener who's selling produce at a farmer's market. And they last for years if it's properly maintained. It saves a huge amount of work in cultivation of weeds. It can also be used in the spring to prepare a garden for planting, and it can be used in the fall to prepare a good seed bed for winter annual cover crops such as clover and rye that gardeners might want to plant. This woven plastic is a very strong material, and since it's woven, when it rains, the rain goes through the plastic, and we can maintain excellent soil moisture underneath this artificial mulch. It provides excellent control of weeds. Weeds cannot grow without sunlight. Now we will get tiny weeds growing right at the planting site, and they're going to have to be pulled by with your fingers occasionally. When you use a pair of scissors, it hurts your hand to cut all those holes, But with the torch, it makes a very perfect hole, and the heat seals the edges so it doesn't unravel. Whatever weed control challenges that you're facing, if you ever are not sure exactly the best way to handle them, I think you ought to contact your local cooperative extension office. This has been Andy Hankins. See you next time on From the Ground Up.
The farmers of Virginia's Eastern Shore know quite a lot about controlling weeds and protecting their land. It turns out these are the producers of the Garden by the Sea, producing a bounty of grains and fresh vegetables.
Farming on the Eastern Shore of Virginia can be traced back to the early 1600s. Back then, tobacco was the primary crop. Eventually, the sandy loam soil proved to be best suited for vegetable and grain production.
Almost anything will grow here. We have, from asparagus to zucchini in some quantities. Our largest three vegetable crops are tomatoes, potatoes, and green beans at this point.
The Eastern Shore is the southernmost tip of the Delmarva Peninsula, known for some of the most productive farmland on the East Coast.
We're lucky enough to have a long enough growing season to basically have two growing seasons for most vegetable crops.
The Hickman family has been growing potatoes, snap beans, corn, wheat, and soybeans on their Eastern Shore farm since the 1800s. This multi-generational family farm is one of the larger potato growers on the shore.
We produce about 300 tractor-trailer loads of potatoes a year. Our potatoes are all for fresh market, and they ship from Miami to Montreal, Canada, pretty much. We go into the northeastern markets for the first part of our season, and then when production south of us winds down, we begin going back into the southern states.
At one time, producers on the shore grew more than 30,000 acres of potatoes. Today, there are 4,500 acres of potatoes, and there are more than 5,000 acres of trellis tomatoes in production. Many producers on the shore are growing corn, wheat, and soybeans because of the growing poultry industry nearby.
From the vegetable standpoint, we have close proximity to the northeastern markets, so it gives us cheaper freight rates than, say, potatoes coming from Idaho to New York. We can deliver for half of the freight.
Farmers here are very aware of the waterways that surround them. The Hickmans have been using best management practices on their farm for more than 40 years.
We keep grass waterways to help slow the flow and reduce nutrients going into the bay. As you can see, we no-till all our grain. Our vegetable production requires tillage, but a lot of that we wait until directly before we plant to reduce any chance of runoff.
New equipment innovations have been developed over the years to reduce expenses and protect the environment. Large-scale farmers like the Hickmans use GPS to track the rows planted, and computerized planters will not overplant or over-fertilize crops. Cover crops like this vetch are planted to conserve water and provide natural mulch to prevent weeds.
We all grew up on the water. We crabbed in the water, we went fishing, we were on the boat, swimming. It's a thing that you want your kids to be able to do as well. Farmers are just as concerned about keeping the environment and the waters clean as anybody else.
Sandwiched between the Chesapeake Bay and the Atlantic Ocean, Virginia's Eastern Shore consists of Accomack and Northampton counties. Tourism actually plays second fiddle in the economy here. Agriculture's always been the #1 economic engine. Both counties are among the top 10 for farm income in the Old Dominion, generating more than $243 million in cash receipts. Corn, wheat, and soybeans are the top row crops in both counties, and poultry is a major industry in Accomack County. Potatoes, green beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, and other fresh vegetables are also valuable crops.
Up next on Real Virginia, Kendra Bailey Morris has a summer vegetable treat for us in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Mark Viette. Coming up on In the Garden, we're going to talk about how you can get your wisteria to bloom. Stay with us.
I think the next generation has to look to be more efficient, be careful, be conservative, but be aggressive too.
To be a third-generation dairy farmer means a lot. It means that I'm able to keep on the traditions set forth by my parents and my grandfathers.
After I graduated high school, I attended Virginia Tech. I studied dairy science. Upon graduation, I returned home to the farm and was full-time, have been full-time ever since.
Family farms are very important to society in general. It helps allow the consumer to know where the food came from and that it was produced properly and taken care of and able to take it to their dinner plate in a healthy manner.
I'm confident the consumer is getting a good product when it leaves here. All dairy farmers, that is their goal. I'm Forrest Nuckols, a dairy farmer from Virginia, and I'm dedicated to dairy, my cows, my milk, and my land.
It's time to kick up a grilling favorite with Kendra Bailey Morris and Heart of the Home.
Hi, I'm Kendra Bailey Morris, and we're here today in Sur La Top's kitchen in lovely Richmond, Virginia. And today we're going to be making a really nice steak dish for the grill. It's a New York strip with a chimichurri sauce. And a chimichurri sauce is basically an Argentinian sauce that's made from fresh herbs. You can use whatever fresh herbs you have in your garden. To get started, what I'm going to do is get some fresh parsley here. And I'm just going to give this a rough chop because it's going to all go into the food processor and be pureed. Add this in. Parsley is the one herb that you really do want to have in this dish. I've got some cilantro. And again, any herbs will work, whatever you've got. If you've got some sage, that's really nice. You can add that in. A little bit of rosemary wouldn't hurt. I like the pungency of cilantro. A lot of people have a love-hate relationship with it. I like it. And this is some fresh oregano from my garden, which I'm very proud of. And I'm just, again, going to give this a rough chop and throw it in. And now I'm going to add some chopped garlic, about 3 cloves. You can add more or less depending on how much you like garlic. I really like garlic. And we're also going to add a jalapeno. Typically, this dish isn't spicy, but I wanted to add some hot peppers. A lot of people have hot peppers growing in their garden, and they have an abundance, and they don't know what to do with them. So I thought this would be a great way to work in some peppers. And I'm just going to seed this. A lot of people think that a jalapeno, the spiciest part are the seeds, but actually the spiciest part is the pith. Both kind of spicy. So you want to remove that if you want to get some of the heat out of it. You could do a serrano, or if you're really daring, you can do a habanero. Really daring, wear gloves if you do that. Next, I'm going to add a shallot. And I love the flavor of a shallot. It's kind of a cross between an onion and garlic. And I'm just going to dice this up. If you don't have a shallot handy, you could add green onions, or you could just add a regular yellow onion. That would work just as well. Now I've got 1 large shallot in here. Now I'm just going to kind of mix this around a little bit. Now I'm going to add some red wine vinegar. And finally, I've got about 3/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And this is what is going to help to emulsify it and bring it together as a nice sauce. I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to puree this up. I like to periodically go in and kind of scrape down the sides here. And this is looking good. The final thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of salt. I like coarse sea salt and a little bit of black pepper. I'm going to give this one more whirl, and then I'm going to move on to the steak. What I have now is a really beautiful New York strip. I like to have them cut at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick if you can get your butcher to do that. It makes them much easier to do on the grill, and that way you can have a nice pink center and not overcook it when they're too thin. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Okay, so we've salt and peppered this. And now we're going to put a pretty good amount of olive oil on it. You might say that's a lot, but it's going to add a really nice flavor element to this. Also keep it from sticking on the grill. And I preheat the grill to medium-high. You want a pretty high heat on this because you want a nice char, and it's going to cook rather quickly as steaks do, and you don't want to overcook it. So I'm going to put this on the grill. And I'm putting it at a bit of an angle so you can get those nice grill marks, those nice crisscross marks. Always so lovely. And we're going to let this cook about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Obviously, you can cook it to your desired doneness, but we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll be right back. So this is looking great. This looks done. I'm going to take it off the grill. And typically you would let this rest about 5 to 10 minutes. And that's a real important part of grilling steaks because you don't want all the juice to come out. And all I'm going to do is just give this a little slice on the bias here. That is perfectly cooked. And here we have our chimichurri sauce, which is finished and ready to go. And I like to just kind of serve a little on top. Just drizzle it. Now this sauce makes enough for at least 2 steaks. So for Heart of the Home, I'm Kendra Bailey Morris. Let's get cooking.
Recipes from the heart of the home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafarmbureau.org.
A powerhouse vegetable grown in Virginia is the potato. The potato is actually part of the plant's underground stem. Potatoes are grown in all 50 states, with the largest potato-producing state being Idaho. In 2009, Virginia was the 6th largest summer potato-producing state in the nation, and our spuds generate approximately $22 million in cash receipts annually. The potato is definitely a favorite food in the U.S. The average American consumes about 65 pounds of potatoes a year.
Southwest Virginia is known for its bluegrass and country music, but as Norm Hyde reports, Carroll County is known as the Salad Bowl of Southwest Virginia.
It's been 2 decades since the Southwest Virginia Farmers Market opened in Carroll County, near the intersection of Interstates 81 and 77. Market manager Kevin Semones says having a warehouse and shipping facility to cool, store, and process fresh produce has allowed the local farm industry to prosper.
We've got great growers, but it's impossible for them to get a volume of product to the market without these type, cooling systems, just the ability to load trucks here, docks. We may load 5 tractor and trailers at a time here.
Today, Southwest Virginia farmers raise broccoli, cabbage, peppers, pumpkins, sweet corn, tomatoes, and other fresh produce for supermarkets. The pumpkin and sweet corn industries didn't even exist 20 years ago. Carroll County grower James Light says he couldn't have expanded from growing cabbage into other crops without the market. Now he's the largest broccoli grower in the area.
We've seen the price of the freight from California in here, and seen that broccoli's in the same family as cabbage, and if you could grow cabbage, you ought to be able to grow broccoli. So I, diversified a lot of my cabbage acreage into broccoli. Six to 7 years ago, we talked with Food City and struck a deal with Food City to be their supplier during the summer months for their local grown program, and it's just kept escalating it up, a little bit each year.
Light now grows about 100 acres of vegetables each year, half of it broccoli and cabbage. He's one of about 50 farmers in the region who are regular users of the market site. Semones says this is the real local foods movement.
When you come down to it, you think about it. Most folks go to a chain store of some type and buy the majority of their groceries anymore. Some do come to a farmer's market or roadside stands, but the bulk of the product is sold in chain type stores anymore.
The Southwest Virginia Farmers Market employs up to 50 people when the growing season is in full swing, and as many as 300 farmers have used it at one time or another. Semones says when the sweet corn crop comes in, they run their coolers full time and ship out 24 hours a day. That's $1 million a year market that didn't even exist a few years ago. Best of all, the market's allowed agriculture to thrive in a region of the state totally different from the vegetable fields of eastern Virginia. In Carroll County, Virginia, I'm Norm Hyde.
The farm has been in the family for 134 years. This has been my home. It's the only thing I've known.
Growing up on a dairy farm was great. You've got all the opportunities to have fun in the wide open spaces and enjoy working with the crops and the cattle.
It's a great way of life for your children.
I love working with animals.
I believe that the family farm is important in this country, no matter if it's 50 cows or 5,000 cows. A lot of the family farms consume their own products and they realize the importance of having a good, healthy product.
I am proud that our family and all of us here at this farm at Walkup can be involved in producing nutritious milk for the society. I'm Dan Myers, a 5th generation dairy farmer from Virginia. I am dedicated to dairy, my cows, my milk, and my land.
Many Virginians enjoy wisteria blooms in May, but what do you do when your wisteria is all leaves and no blooms? Mark Viette has some suggestions in the garden.
Many of us might have a home or property where we might, instead of having 6 or 7 wisterias, we might just have 1 or 2 plants, and they never bloom. So when we look to the reasons why wisteria may not bloom, one of the leading reasons is just not enough afternoon sun. They might get morning sun, but not enough afternoon sun. So you want to make sure you get as much afternoon sun as possible. Another thing, if your wisteria is in a lawn, maybe they're getting too much nitrogen fertilizer. So it's producing lots of these growths that are light green, and it's just getting bigger and bigger every year. What we find with wisteria is you might have to shock it into blooming. And by pruning it, you can help initiate budding and then flowering in the spring. It's really not hard to do. You know, a common question people may have is, what about just coming in with my hedge trimmers, my electrical gas-powered one, and just give it a haircut? If you do that, all you're going to end up with is these wispy, young shoots, very little flowering. So I always recommend what is called thinning, and that is reaching in and taking out whole branches. And for example, I'm going to come in and reach in and remove a whole lateral like this. This is a great example of an older lateral, and you will see nice young wispy growth. So if you give it a haircut, all you're going to see is this. But what I'm going to do is, if I left this main lateral on the plant itself, you can look at all the little buds. There's many buds here on this young growth that occurred this year. This is 1-year-old growth. As I said, one way is just to come in here one time in the fall and cut it back very hard, or do that in the spring. But the ideal thing to do is mid-August, tip it back. Again, 2 weeks later, tip it back. And then September, just tip it back like this. I have forced all the energy from the roots and all this foliage into this 1, 2, and 3 buds. And that will help force those buds to grow into flowering buds, as opposed to being just foliage buds and lots of foliage. You really don't want to take any more than 20% of the growth. If you take too much of the growth, you're going to get excessive new sprouts, which is really what you don't want. I also recommend feeding it with a mineralizer, maybe something like green sand, and there's many others that have as many as almost 100 nutrients. That will help. So as I'm working through, I'm pruning these all to 1 to 3. It may take more than 1 year of this process, but it won't be long before you have beautiful hanging wisteria blooms on a plant that really has never bloomed for you in the past. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.
We're so glad you could join us this month to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer, whether it's in your home, your garden, or even at your local farmers market. This is really what Real Virginia is all about. So for everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a good month.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay.